Namaskar. Welcome to this session. Now we are proceeding to next Samyamatmaka or Samyamajanya Siddhi. The Siddhi that ensues from Samyama. The Siddhi that ensues out of a Samadhi. And that Siddhi is Yogi having prescience in the form of Aparanta Jnanam and Arishtha Jnanam. And this is by Samyama on Sopakrama Nirupakrama karma. So there are two classes of karma, and it's a functional classification. There are endless classifications of karma. We have seen on an earlier occasion when we are dealing with the karma siddhanta. But now for this particular siddhi, there is a classification of karma, a functional classification of karma called Sopakrama karma, Nirupakrama karma. And by Samyama on these two kinds of karmas, what ensues is a siddhi of the nature of Aparanta Jnanam and Arishtha Jnanam. Now what is Aparanta Jnanam? Aparanta Jnanam means Janma Aparanta, death. The Mrtyu that happens after the birth, having a span of life. The life ends with death. So, Janma Aparanta means Mrtyu. What follows Janma is a state called Mrtyu, death. So, birth is a state, and then if there is a birth, invariably there is a state or stage which is Mrtyu, and in between you have a lifespan. So Janma Aparanta means Janma Aparanta means Mrtyu. So it is Mrtyu Jnanam about death. Now Jnanam about death means in what perspective of it? Desha Kala Samaya Nimitta. So knowledge of the death, it's not what is death and how is death. It is the time, space, incidence, etc. for the death. So it, in simple word, it means it is knowledge about when one will die, why one will die, how one will die, where one will die, in what situation, what condition one will die. So that is Aparanta Jnana. So it is certainty about all these factors. The yogi gets a preview with absolute certainty about when, where, how, why the death is going to take place. Death is a certainty, but none of us are sure about where, when, how, etc. about death. But Aparanta Jnana means having certain knowledge with certainty about these aspects about the death. So that is Aparanta Jnanam. In brief, it is called Aparanta Jnanam. What is Arishtha Jnanam? Arishtha Jnanam means the calamities that will come in the life. The calamities really generally devastate we mortals. So we have few calamities in our life. And these calamities are turning points in our life. So, Arishta means Sankat. Sankat means the calamity in life. And about portents. Also, that portents means signals about the death. So, yogi gets signals about the death. That means it is not only that he knows when, where, how, why, etc. death will take place, but also there is some signaling for death. And the death is something which is considered to be inauspicious thing for us. Birth is very auspicious and the death is inauspicious. So the signals are had by the yogi who has attained this particular siddhi. So although he might be already knowing the time, place, space, situation, etc. about the death, when the death is round the corner, he will get signals, because he will not be bearing in mind all the time that I am going to die on such and such day, such and such time, such and such place, etc. And therefore there is a signal, alert that is received by a yogi that you are about to reach that point where the death will be encountered. So those are called portents, and that is called Arishtha Jnanam. So both are had, Aparanta Jnanam, Arishtha Jnanam, by a particular Samyama which is on Sopakrama karma and Nirupakrama karma. And this knowledge about death and having signals about the death is very important for a yogi. For we mortals, it is better that we do not know when the death is coming, or we do not get the signals of death. Because if we get the signals of death, perhaps we will be dying before we die. Because we mortals cannot face the death. And therefore it is a blessing for us that we are not sure about the death. Because enormous fear is there for a being with regards to death, and no fear is greater than fear for death. So it is a blessing for us that we have no knowledge about it, we don't get any signals about it. Whereas for a yogi who knows the reality of death, and because of his adhyatma jnana, he doesn't have fear about the death like we mortals have fear about it. And therefore the knowledge about the death and signals about the death is important for you. It doesn't, for the yogi, it doesn't shake him, it doesn't create a jolt in his life, but as a matter of fact, he is able to carry out death management. And death management is so important for a yogi. While we mortals are looking for life management, we cannot manage our birth. Birth is unmanaged, unmanageable for us. But the life, we try to manage it, particularly those who think they are wise people, those who think that they are intelligent people, they try to manage the life. And therefore, for we mortals, management of life is very important. For a yogi, the life is already well managed. What yogi needs is management of the death. And that is why this kind of the portents of death, etc., which are mentioned here, are very important. And the Aparanta Jnanam is also important. So he doesn't get panicky about knowledge about the death. All of us know that the death is certain, but knowledge of death or any signal of death, we are devastated and we are perturbed. Whereas a yogi, because of his philosophical knowledge in him, philosophical reality being realized and the life being conducted in yoga, he has no fear about the death. And the death management is important for him because it is said in eschatology that when you die, where you die, how you die is important. And that's why perhaps you should recall the story from Mahabharata where Bhishma had a boon that he had what is called Ichchamaranam. The death would come by his own desire. And of course Bhishma was a great noble Mahanubhava, a great human being. And he had this boon, and therefore, although he was slain in the battle, he was not dead until he wished that he should die. And he waited for Uttarayana to come up, because that is so important in Gati Shastra, that the Archiradi Marga, there are two paths after death. One is called dark path, the other one is called bright path. Pitruyana Marga, Devayana Marga. So, Pitruyana Marga means we come back. Rebirth, reincarnation. So when we come back to our birth after death, it is because we go on that path, which is called Pitruyana Marga. It's also called Chandra Marga. While the other one is called Archiradi. Archi means bright path, and the other one is a dark path. So we die in and go in dark path and come back. While yogis want to die in at a point in time where they get ready transport to go on Archiradi Marga and go towards liberation. So the two paths are also explained in Bhagavad Gita in the 8th chapter. And there we are told that the dark path or the Pitruyana Marga, the death happens at night, happens in dark fortnight, and happens in Dakshinayana. So when the sun is heading towards the south. So that is called the time Ayana. It is called Dakshinayana. And the other one is called Uttarayana. Uttarayana means daytime, bright fortnight, and 6 months of the year when the sun is moving northwards. So we know that Earth has axial rotation and then that slant of 23.5 degrees. So when the summer of the Cancer of Capricorn ends, the summer of North Hemisphere commences, and that is called Uttarayana. Makara Sankramana is that Uttarayana time. So Uttarayan, Shuklapaksha and daytime, these are bright. These have bright aspects, while night and Dakshinayana and the Krishnapaksha are dark. So, in Adhyatma Shastra, Moksha Shastra, it is said that the death should be in Uttarayan, and Bhishma waited for Uttarayan to commence because he wanted to die in Uttarayan, so that he would have the transport ready to be going on Archiradi Marga. So Yogi would like to manage the death. Dying at right point in time is important. Dying in right condition is important. Dying in right way is important. So Yogi is given this privilege that he can time his time, place, situation, condition for death. That's called death management. And therefore the Aparanta Jnanam and Arishtha Jnanam is important, so that Yogi can die at opportune time. So in Adhyatma, we are told about this. Upanishads have also spoken about the Pitruyana Marga and Devayana Marga, Dhumra Marga and Archiradi Marga. Dhumra Marga means the path of fume, and Archiradi Marga means path of brightness. So that's the death management, and Yogi does that for his better future after death. And he can do that death management basically because he has no fear about the death, which all of us have. And you should recall that Abhinivesha Klesha, the fear of extinction. Although we are all immortals essentially, yet we have fear of extinction. And we have fear of death because Marana Vedana is something that is intolerable. We cannot put up with that pain and sorrow of death. Whereas Yogi is beyond all that. And therefore, he thinks of death management. We commoners are afraid and dreaded of any kind of sorrow. And we would be pressing the panic buttons whenever we have sorrows, and particularly the sorrow of the nature of death, we would certainly press the panic buttons. So much so that we don't want to even think about it. Although it is a certainty, death is a certainty, we don't want to talk about our own death and death of our kith and kin. Our kith and kin also won't like we talking about our death. So we don't want to even speak about the death, although we know that it is the most certain things after one has taken birth. Nothing is as certain as death. But yet we have fear for it. And therefore it is a blessing for us that we have no knowledge about the death. Knowledge about the death would make us die before we should die. That is how the condition is. And therefore, as I said, it's a blessing for us that we have no knowledge about the death, and we don't want to even manage the death. Manage the death means we want to try to avoid the death. That's all. But in Paramartha, the realities are different, which Adhyatma tells us, and I recall that verse from Bhagavad Gita 2.27, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuh dhruvam janma mrutasya cha. Having born, one is going to certainly have a death. With whatsoever exception not available. There is no exception at all. Having taken birth, one is going to die. The most certain thing after the birth is the death, and nothing is as certain as the death. So also dhruvam janma bhrutasya cha. Having died, again the janma is equally certain. We are going to take birth once again once we die. That's why we are caught in the wheel of janma mrtyu. No one can escape this wheel. No one with any amount of prowess and power and glory can escape the wheel of death, life and death, birth and death. So Bhagavad Gita makes it clear, Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityu dhruvam janma bhrutasya cha. Now we just hear this in our satsanga and pravachanas, and we are really timid to be going deeper into this reality. Just know, those who are inclined to knowing reality, little philosophical minded, they just know this. Chatasya dhruvam mrityu dhruvam janma bhrutasya cha. They don't want to ponder over it, they don't want to really deliberate on it. But one who is spiritually evolved on a higher pedestal of it, he doesn't say that I know about it. He does something for it. He does something about it. About the life, the Bhagavad Gita again tells us about the human incarnation. He tells us about any life form. He says in the same chapter, just as we change our clothes when they are old and torn, we change the clothes and put on the new clothes. Similarly, we change our body and take a new body. So that's the metaphysical reality, and there is no exception whatsoever here, except the case of moksha, nirvana, liberation. Otherwise, there is no way that one can escape the wheel of birth and death. And of course, in satsanga we hear about these verses from Bhagavad Gita, but we really don't have courage to go deeper into it. That is one thing. The second thing, the yoga, as much as it is jivana vyavasthapanam, yoga is management of life. And those who are familiar with the philosophy of yoga and practices of yoga, they know that very well, that the life is best managed by yoga. So yoga is the best measure, means for jivana vyavasthapanam. And Adhyatma tells us about it, that yoga is nothing but jivana vyavasthapanam. But that is only for us, and that's why we will try to manage our life better, in a better way than otherwise, by taking recourse to yoga. But then it is equally true that the yoga is also for mrtyu vyavasthapanam, for uttamadhikari or uccha adhikari. We are all people, mortals, we are not even qualified, we are all anadhikari yogis. So anadhikari and adhamadhikari, they will have plight with the death, and they hardly think about death management. But uttamadhikari purusha is called dhira purusha, and this predication comes in Upanishads, dhira purusha. Dhira means courage, And therefore, such a Dhira Purusha wants to manage the death. And manage the death, what is called as prayana, the timing of it. He manages the timing of it. That is Desha Kala Nimitta. So, opportune time is struck, like Bhishma waited for some days for really leave the mortal coils. Just as we try to look for muhurtam, for auspicious deeds, there is also muhurtam for death when it comes to a Uttamadhikari yogi. He will time his death like we time any auspicious work, and we call it as muhurta, and we want to hit the muhurta and do that act at that point in time, opportune point in time. So there's similarly yogi looks for muhurtam for death, and Bhishma Pitamaha is the best example in the history which tells us about this. So the yogi wants to go to a place from where he will not return. Nacha punaravartate, nacha punaravartate, as the Vedanta tells us. So also Bhagavad Gita tells us, Yad gatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama, in the 15th chapter, where once having gone, one doesn't return to mortal plane. So one reaches immortality forever thereafter. That's also called Vaikuntha Gamanam. And for Vaikuntha Gamanam, opportune time is to be struck. It's also called Vaikuntha Samaradhana. That's called Devayana Pantha. That's called Archaradi Pantha. And therefore, yogi will choose right opportune time, place, situation, and the instrumental cause of death. And therefore this Aparanta Jnanam is important for a yogi. Just as our birth is because of our swakarma, we have taken birth because of our swakarma. Our own deeds have given us birth. The death also takes place because of karma gati. But both the things don't happen with a muhurta. We don't take birth by muhurta, nor do we die by muhurta. Other things in life we try to go for muhurta, take the date, time, etc. as muhurtam, and then we want to do that at that point in time, which is auspicious point in time. However, our birth and death, there is no muhurtam. But for every other thing there is muhurtam. So it should be noted that birth and death are not happening on muhurta, but for a yogi, for moksham, for immortality, or to be going to a place from where one will not return, yad gatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. Krishna says, that is my abode, where having gone, one doesn't return to planes of mortality. So that's also called Vaikuntha Gamanam. So that is struck at most auspicious time by a yogi. That is Shubhatama Muhurtam. It's not just Shubha Muhurtam. It is Shubhatama Muhurtam. And therefore, for Prayana, the last journey, yogi wants to have the plan, the management, so that he will go to that abode of immortality, what's called Brahmapada, which is called Vaikuntham, which is called Mokshapada. But for others, our death is not managed, but if our karmas are good, we will take next birth at a good point in time, at right time, at opportune time, so that we take birth in Srimatam Gehe, which is again expression in Bhagavad Gita. So we will be born in a house of a rich person. Rich person means not just wealthy, rich person in samskars, so that our sadhana can continue. So yoga sadhana can continue because yoga sadhana is also to be carried out for several lives. Anek janma samsiddho tato yati param gatim. Bhagavad Gita again. So in that sense, Srimanta in samskar, so that our path of yoga would be facilitated. Anyway, the point is, therefore, the Mrtyu Vyavasthapanam, death management is important. Aparanta Jnanam is important. And that Aparanta Jnanam must be also assisted by the signaling. The yogi should get signal that your death is round the corner. Because yogi is not going to remember the death day like we try to remember the birthday of our loved ones. We will never forget the birthday of our loved ones. So we remember the birthday. But that doesn't mean the yogi is going to remember the death day. And therefore, this is opportunity for him to manage the death, because he get the portents, death signals. Although he knows where, when, how he is going to die, it is important to have the signal, and that is why that is also provided here. Arishtebhyaha, Arishtha Jnanam, and with that he will get a signal and he will be on alert, knowing that the death time has approached and it is shortly going to arrive. And that's why this is so important. Aparanta Jnanam, Arishtha Jnanam. Anyway, yogi is going to go to Moksha Padam. And going to this Moksha Pada is also huge celebration. And that is why it is also called Vaikunta Samaradhana. Like the bride and groom are waiting for the muhurtam to come, because they are going to be in a wedlock on that muhurta, and they are intently waiting, anxiously waiting, closely waiting for muhurtam. It is similarly, yogi is waiting for muhurta of moksha, and huge celebration is there. Like wedding is huge celebration, and therein we have the muhurta time, and in muhurta time the wedlock is applied. Now similarly is the case of death, of moksha rather, and this description comes in an Upanishad called Kaushitaki Brahmana Upanishad. And the Brahma, the Almighty, the celestial deities, they are all going to host a reception for this yogi who is going to get liberated. Like we are aware of wedding receptions, there is similarly reception arranged for one who is about to reach the Moksha Padam. And this is beautifully described in Kaushitaki Brahmana Upanishad. So one should really look into that passage of that Upanishad that will tell us about the huge celebration which takes place because one of the Purusha, one of the Atma is going to get liberation, is going to reach the Paramapadam. And of course, I recall a recent incident that happened for Vaikuntha Samaradhana for a great saint of Maharashtra called Tukaram Maharaj. In a place near Pune called Dehu, the Dehu people had this kind of glorious sight about 350 years back to see a person ascending to Vaikuntham. The Garuda Vahanam had arrived, and then Tukaram was asked to mount on that Garuda Vahanam, and he mounted on the Garuda, and then he left to immortal world, and that was cited by even the mortals of that town near Pune, which is Dehu. And Tukaram Maharaj bid a farewell to all people, fellow people with whom he had lived for his lifetime, and he made an expression that I am going back to my original place. Ami zato amucha gava, amucha rama rama ghyava. So he says, I am going to return to my Swarupa Avasthiti, my essential state, and that is by being in Vaikuntham. So that was a great occasion in Dehu, and even the mortals cited the Tukaram taking that Garuda Vahanam and ascending to Vaikuntha Lokam. So that is how that occasion is. And then the Upanishad, Kaushitaki Brahmanopanishad, describes the reception given to him in a place which is beyond Viraja river. Viraja, that means Rajatama Gunas crossed. And that supreme Paravairagya, Viraja, which is the qualifier for liberation. And then he is made to sit next to the deity Brahma, who is going to escort him. He sits on a kind of swing, and he is given an entertainment there. And lots of celebrations take place. I would request one to go into that Upanishad and read the passage for oneself. And then that's how the liberation is granted by Brahma, and he escorts him to Brahmaloka, and which is the plane of immortality. Anyway, for you and me, we converge the mortals. The Mrtyu is Mahaviyoga. It's a great disjunction, and we have a lot of sorrow on account of this disjunction. We are going to leave our people. We are going to leave our parents and children and relatives who are around us. We are going to leave all of them, and therefore it is Mahaviyoga, and it is quite a sorrowful situation when a death is occurring. So there is Vilapa Pralapa. People cry, people are sunk in deep sorrows by death in the family of kith and kin. And it's mountain of sorrows. Mrtyu, or the death, is mountain of sorrows and that falls on us. And therefore the Mrtyu is considered to be absolutely avoidable. It is the greatest dread, fear. It is Janmocheda. And that is very, very painful. Pranothkramanam is very, very painful. But similarly, you should know that liberation is in a way Janmocheda, that you are not going to take birth again. And for such event, the time, place, situation, etc. is very important. He is not going to live the life half-heartedly and living the life half accomplished. He has to accomplish all the things. Many things have to be accomplished, knowing that death is round the corner. And therefore many pack-ups are required. One has to pack up for death. Yogi has to pack up. We all mortals die without any pack-up, and we know how much the family is in disarray with our death. But Yogi doesn't allow these things. So he starts packing up act. He packs up all aspects of the life, because he knows that he is now not going to return. It's a last journey. And today we are aware of what we call as disaster management. This has become very important in our times. All the disasters are there from time without beginning. But today's man is conscious about something, and therefore the disaster management has gained importance. But the yogi also does that management for death. Although it is not a disaster for him, he manages that. And that is what is provided by the Samyama that is being mentioned, which is called Aparanta Jnanam and Arishtha Jnanam. So, Aparanta Jnanam means Prayana Kalina Jnanam. My time of last journey. Where is my last journey of life? And last journey of life is said to be death. So that is the Prayana Kalina Jnanam, knowledge about the final journey. And Arishtha Jnanam is threefold: Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, Adibhautika. So there are three kinds of portents, which are Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, Adibhautika. And they give yogi the signal of death. He gets the signal by the Adibhautik signal, Adhyatmik signal and Adidaivik signal. So that's a kind of alert that yogi gets, that the death is around the corner and he should do the final pack-up. So let's try to understand what are the Adidaivik, Adhyatmik, Adibhautik, Arishtas, the portents, the death signals. We will also have to understand the Sopakrama and Nirupakrama karma, which is the locus of Samyama, on which the Samyama takes place, and then the consequence is Aparanta Jnanam and Arishtha Jnanam. So that's the remainder part of the sutra that we have to still open out as to what are these portents, which is quite an interesting indication that Shastra gives us. So we will look into that, and we will also try to understand the classification of Sopakrama and Nirupakrama karma. But this is for the next session. So enough for the time being. Namaskar all of you.